Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for October 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing, ladies and gentlemen. Police Chief Hart's dad, Dr. Hart, Dr. William Hart, passed away this weekend at the ripe age of 92 or 93. I'm sorry, I don't have that exactly. He started a practice, a medical practice in Plattsdale over 60 to 70 years ago. Was an attendee at the and on staff at Holy Family. If you had ever met Dr. Hart, you knew you met him and he touched your life. So you can only imagine how he touched all of his patients. You talk to other doctors that practiced at Holy Family, and nothing but renown and respect for him. His son told me a story once about how when they were little, he says money was tight because people would come and they would pay with eggs. Sometimes there was a goat. Every once in a while there were chickens. He says, but Dr. Hart persevered, raised a great family. So a few minutes for the Hart family and for their loss. Thank you. All right, folks, I have public comment, which I'm starting off with. First thing I have on my agenda is Mr. Lewis on the Sanborn Crossing Senior Center, Senior Living. Mr. Lewis, hi.
Hello.
So I just need a name and address for our records.
Yes. Stephen Lewis. I live at 95 Main Street in Atkinson, New Hampshire.
Thank you, sir. Now, you're 6 feet away from anybody. If you're more comfortable taking the mask off to speak,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome to do that.
It's just that it's hard. It's hard for you to hear me.
Totally understand. You see what I'm doing.
Well, I wanted to come by and say, the Marathon 2-year project is finished. It's complete. It's we're occupying it right now. And I wanted, because of COVID-19, we couldn't have a big open house, hoo-ha type of thing. But I really think it would be important that, I met with you, it was over 2 years ago, and I was approached, would I please do an age-restricted project in Londonderry that was rent-capped, below market. And the only rent cap or mechanism in the state of New Hampshire is low-income housing tax credits, which is what we did. Plus, because the project was large, we also had a state bond. They actually sold bonds for this project. Though those carry a lot of additional reviews way past the town of Londonderry's. So I don't know of a piece of land that has been more thoroughly studied. And where this was a brownfield, there was another level of scrutiny. And so we went through all of the processes. And I wanted to just let you know tonight, it is now finished. And I would really, and I would like to say the only person that has taken me up on the invitation to come is Ms. Paul, and she came and she saw it. I would hope that you guys would be ambassadors for this, because this is your first true rent cap project, and it's very difficult to do a rent cap project in a community with such high median income. I don't know if you are aware that we don't determine the rent. HUD determines the rent. HUD looks at the area's median income. They say, here's what the rent will be. Every year, it's independently audited. And I would like, the citizens of Londonderry to know it's probably one of the safest forms of rent-capped affordable housing you could have in your community because of their requirements. They require, my accountant can't do my bookkeeping. For this project, it has to be audited independently. I choose from 3 people they give me. That's one thing I would like the council to know. You approached me, we did it, but that was 2 years ago, and I want to bring everybody up to speed that it is a fully approved low-income housing tax credit project with median income requirements. There are levels. We're required to rent some units to people who make 60% of median income. Some units are designated 50% of median income. And some units are actually even lower. It's called home money, home funds. complicated beyond all belief, but we are processing the people. But I think it's good for people to know that in order to do this, where the town gave the land, we were required to sign a 99-year land use restriction, which is obviously part and parcel. If you're going to receive a piece of land, it has to stay affordable for 99 years. That affects the property's assessed value, but we all went into it knowing that. So if I was ever to sell it, it's not sold at market rate. It's sold at below whatever the income is produced by the project. But I wanted to come and invite you, and I can do it on an individual basis, or I could even do it in a group. They asked that obviously no more than 10 people. Well, obviously, there's no more than 10 people on the council. I don't mind. I'm flexible. I have to be there all the time. I would love you to just come and see it. So when you're asked, you can say, I physically have seen it. I think this project looks nicer than some high-end multifamily that you have built in your community. My goal was to make the phone not ring once people moved in, and to have a project that was made with materials that are easier to take care of. And I think if you come and look at it, you can see that. We also did a lot of things that are not in a market project. We have on-site, we have what is called a services coordinator. There's an office, there's a community center in each building, but on each floor, there's also a mini lobby created to encourage social interaction. Especially in projects where, look, I'm 70, so I age qualify. So when you're dealing with people like me, sometimes we become hermits. So the project was designed to encourage social interaction but not force it. So these mini living rooms are put right next to where the laundry facilities are on each floor. So there's a table. We have an exchange lending library on every floor. People can take books, put books. They can use their laptop. They could eat. There's no restriction. So I just wanted you to be aware that we're up and running, and anyone you can send our way, because unfortunately with COVID-19, the most affected group are people 60 and older, and that's who you wanted us to target. So we set the requirements, and HUD agreed, no one in these buildings can be under 62. It used to be, started out at 55, and then they ratcheted up that one person had to be 62. The new requirements in this building are everyone has to be 62. So that was really, and I would love, if you had any questions about how does the rent work, how do we process, or if not, I'm just here to answer any questions and to say, I survived it, and I hope you guys survived it. I do have a few more facial tics, though.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lewis. I'm sorry I missed your invite. I would have shown up for it, but somehow during COVID, I can't explain anything.
Well, and understand, we didn't do a written one because COVID came down the pike. I mentioned it when we were at the council hearings, but there wasn't much to see then. Now there's a lot to see.
No, it's great. I walk past it almost every day on the rail trail, so it looks great. Questions from the council?
Yeah,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Lewis,
One, two,
first of all, I assure you that I've been on that project 3 or 4 different times.
Well, I heard through the
last time was
grapevine.
during the finishes, but I would like to take you up on your offer to see the absolute finished product.
I'd like you to go inside and see the
And I will.
buildings.
How's your occupancy since your certificate of occupancy?
Well, here's the
Great.
scenario.
Yeah,
Before I came here, I checked.
yeah.
There's 102 units. I normally do them in phases, but the state wanted it done all at once. So this is the first time I've ever done a project that wasn't phased, by the way. But it's there. When you do a bond issue, it's required. They can't, when they sell the bonds, they sell the bonds. That's it, one shot. So we had 102 units, and there are 24 vacancies. Now, in the scheme of things under COVID, I suppose that's not so bad, but it still doesn't break even. So we're just trying to, and I can't fault people for walking away from signed leases. We had a lot of people who had signed leases, and they walked away because in May, the bottom fell. If all you listened to was CNN, you would think we were going to go in a hole and we're all going to perish. Also, it's understandable that especially people with compromised immune systems, people that have related health problems because of their age, they have to be extra careful. And they didn't want moving companies touching their furniture. But now we've found companies that will sterilize it. We clean the lobbies and stuff we have a company that we hired that we had to close the community rooms, but now we're allowed to open them because we clean them every day. So we've had to learn like everybody else. So out of 102 units, if there's only 24 vacancies, I suppose I'm not going to look at it as the glass is half empty, but I really would like to get it up there so that New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority isn't going, okay. But I don't think it's a lack of market, because the market study that we did prior to COVID showed there is no similar housing. It's just people are frightened. And I think at this point, if they knew all the kind of precautions we do, they shouldn't be. For instance, this is a brand new building with air filtration, air exchanges, all these federal requirements. I would say the requirements the federal government makes us do probably increase the cost of this project by 30%, that you wouldn't do in a market project. But all those things are there. So from a standpoint of filtered air and the standpoint of air changes, it's a green, clean building. It's foam insulation. It has solar panels. And one of the things we were able to do for by the way, the people that live there are not tenants, they're residents. That's the federal guideline requirement. Residents do not pay any utilities other than their phone and their TV cable. We were able to build a building that with the solar panels, et cetera, they don't have to pay electric, they don't have to pay for heat, they don't have to pay for hot water. So when you look at the rent, they need to, when people see that, they shouldn't compare it, apples to apples, because the rent that they pay pays everything. But anything you guys, send people our way. It is a very difficult process. It's a narrow window. We have people that apply that make $500 too much a year. It's so frustrating, and they think I can just erase it. I can't. I can't counsel people. I can't tell people how to fix their thing. That's called steering. And we have a lot of people, believe it or not, who don't make enough money, even though it's rent capped. There are a couple of things that families can do, this is something that is allowed. If you have a father or mother that doesn't quite make enough money, if a family member is willing to sign a thing saying they'll help them out when they're needed, the federal government will okay that. That's something that people might not know. It's not a commitment. We don't go after the person if they don't pay their rent. It's just something that goes in the file.
Okay. Let the record reflect I've waived the 5 minutes for this presentation. Joe?
I just wanted to thank you. I mean, this council, when I first got on it, I remember dreaming about this type of project and just trying to find the right area for it. This parcel, I think, beat out the dog park, I think, way back when. But thank you. Thank you for making this a reality. A lot of people have been dreaming about this, like I said, and really wanting to see it. One of the things I've heard a lot about, and you've probably heard, and everybody in this room has heard, why can't it just be for Londonderry folks? But we've since defined that quite a lot of many times. And I was going to echo the chairman's sentiment about the invitation. I was going to say I missed the invitation because I certainly would be up there. So now I'll take you up on it, and I can't wait to see that dream come true in reality in live form. So
Thank you.
I'll be there. Thank you for what you did.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think it also should be said, when people were wondering, this is the only way the town could have taken this parcel and turned it into revenue, because if this was a market project, which I do market projects, no bank would have touched it because of the brownfield status. No insurance company would have touched it. So it was a really combined effort between the town and myself. And I don't know if you're aware that we received a covenant not to sue from the state of New Hampshire. guaranteeing that if something happened, if something was discovered later on, that it would be taken care of by the state, not the town, not me. Also, a market project would have had difficulty where the federal government, I don't know if you realize, they guarantee the mortgage and they guarantee the buildings. So everything there that we did was designed to mitigate anything. And by the way, the only products on that property that classify it, that's why I wasn't as nervous about it, was arsenic, which we found out was naturally occurring after removing a whole bunch of it. There is such a thing as naturally occurring arsenic in New Hampshire. And manganese, which is not a killer, and tires and car parts. So that's why you have those big privacy berms, because you can't remove it off the site. So it was very complicated logistics, but we were able to do it.
I remember going through all that because I was getting phone calls. Are you kidding me? You're going to put the senior housing over there? And it's just an education process. So I'm glad that you were able to answer those questions, and the town took those calls and appropriately brought the right information to the right people. So everybody can calm down about it a little bit.
But I think it's good for people to know that there wasn't like PCBs and things like that. And the water is off-site. This, everything is off-site. They can't have community gardens. My other projects have community gardens. But the areas where the material was removed, I mean, the town removed a lot of material, and then we, wherever everything is capped and sealed, but there wasn't, when we found out the arsenic was naturally occurring, it was a giant relief to me, because it's not considered poison if it's naturally occurring. Obviously, you wouldn't want to go sit out there and take a 5-gallon pail of soil and eat it, but it isn't the type of thing that vaporizes. There's nothing like that. And we do have air exchangers and mitigators and things like that also, but they require that regardless of whether it's a brownfield. That's a federal requirement now, that all buildings have to have air exchangers.
Deb?
I just wanted to say I did take the tour, and your place is built unbelievable. The quality is amazing. It feels like a hotel. The thing that impressed me the most was that the residents that we bumped into in the hallway all knew you by name. They looked at you as a friend, not a landlord, and that they knew you and that you were there. And I thought that was pretty amazing, because usually they're never around. You can't find them. And it was just beautiful. And I am impressed with how well you know almost every single tenant there. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Well, I think I had told the town in the beginning, a lot of these projects are built by a builder developer, and then they're either purchased or owned by somebody else and managed by another company. The reason why New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority pushes me to the general public, like I know the town inquired, is that I build them, I own them, and I manage them. And so they have one person they can go after, but I do know everybody there, much to my wife's chagrin sometimes.
But it's just very personable, and I thought that was nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more comment. I just wanted to also tell the town manager, as you know, thanks, is also owed to Kathy Blash for the connection that we've made. She's part of the Senior Affairs Committee, and this kind of all was born out of that committee, and it's just a proud moment to see that out there. So wanted to also thank her for their contributions.
I appreciate it. And again, I wanted to come when it was all done, so you didn't think I was here looking for something. I'm not looking for anything,
Well, thank you, Mr.
other than send me some tenants,
You meant residents, right?
residents.
Just
We'll take
kidding,
tenants,
just kidding, Mr. Lewis. Yeah, we look forward to seeing it. Thank you for coming in.
And that office has my number. Deb, you have my number.
Yep.
Please give me a call. I'd love to show it to you.
Terrific, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry it takes so much time.
No, not at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in public comment. If there's anyone who would like to approach the council and make comment, this would be the appropriate time.
I'd like to talk about the mask ordinance. Is anyone
Then come on forward, sir, if you would like to do that.
Okay.
So, sir, what I need is I need your name and address, and then what I need to let you know is that you have a 5-minute limit.
Okay, my name's John Best. I'm at 27 Atlas Place in Londonderry.
Yes, yes.
It may be worthwhile to let you know that this ordinance is scheduled for a public hearing in a couple of weeks, where we'll solicit input from the general public on the ordinance before we take any action on it. So just so you know that this is not your only time to talk to, you can talk to the council about anything on public comment, but if you want to be in sync with the public hearing on this ordinance, it will be on October 19th.
I just saw that,
Just as a point of information.
I just saw that it was gonna be, brought up, or something was gonna be done with it at this meeting, and I didn't know if you were gonna implement it tonight.
We have
Or
to go
not.
through, in an ordinance like this, we have to, and the chairman will explain this also, we have to put a notice to the public that this is something under consideration, and then you get 2 weeks for the public to hear that as part of the noticing process. And then after 2 weeks of that notice, which in this case will be on the 19th, let me get that date right. Yes, the 19th. Then we have a public hearing to gather all the information from the public before we take any action on it. So just to get, as a point of information for you, so you don't think that we're gonna do something tonight. We can't do anything without that public hearing on this legislation here before us.
Okay, well, I just wanna point out that, no matter what,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. Can you give us your name and address, please, again? I'm sorry.
John Best, 27 Atlas Place, Londonderry.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
Okay, I just want to point out first that no matter what anything in RSA says, the supreme law in the United States is the Declaration of Independence, which says that governments derive their consent, their just powers from the consent of the governed, and I do not consent to anyone making a mask rule that can affect my health. As far as I know, from literally hundreds of doctors, masks are hazardous to our health. And this corona hoax is a fraud, a crime against humanity. And I'd like to give you something to watch. It's a 45-minute video made by a doctor who's also an attorney, practices in Germany and California, came out a couple days ago. It's already had at least 500,000 views on his channel on YouTube. His name's Dr. Rainer Fuellmich, ReinerFuellmich, and his video is titled Crimes Against Humanity. He's filing a lawsuit, class action lawsuit, on behalf of every citizen on Earth against the people who perpetrated this hoax against us. I see everybody here wearing masks. I wonder why anyone would wear a mask if they get their information about the corona hoax any place besides CNN, the major networks, or lying politicians. Anyone who reads or goes elsewhere and talks to honest doctors who aren't allowed on TV knows that this thing is a hoax, and they would never wear a mask. I ask you, stop watching TV, stop listening to politicians, and research this thing. Stop wearing the masks. They're hazardous to your health. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome to stick around, sir, and see what we do with this. I think you may be satisfied with the actions we'll be taking.
My autistic son here is incontinent. I'm taking a risk by keeping him here. I don't want your chairs and your floor wet. So I'm gonna get him out of here.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, let's go. Time to go home. Go home and have cookies. Come on.
Is there anyone else who'd like to approach the council under public comment? Yeah, yes, Ann.
This way. Come on, come on. Who wants to go up?
about the planning board seats? Do you want me to wait or talk now?
So we're going to make appointments tonight.
Okay.
You want to address us about making appointments?
Sure.
Okay,
This one won't be forgotten in the mix.
okay.
Everybody else has applied for it, and if I
Okay.
say a few words, and I know you're going to give me 5 minutes, so I'll speak fast.
You're welcome to take the time.
Okay, I just want to give you some background.
Okay, thank you.
And, anyways, my name's Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I'd like to take a moment, or 5, to refresh your memories a little about my background and why I should be appointed as a full member of the planning board. I'm local. I grew up in the Deerfield section, the southeast section of Manchester that was once part of Nutfield. You know, the name, before this area was chartered in 1722 as the Township of Londonderry. We just celebrated the 300th anniversary of Nutfield last year. I know its history. I know the town and appreciate all it has to offer. I remember coming to town with my mom in the 1950s in our 55 Ford to buy eggs from a local farm and became fast friends with many local kids here in high school. I knew that one day I'd make Londonderry my home because it was so beautiful here. And what I found here is not only great scenery, but great schools, activities, neighborhoods, and volunteers. I'm a true Yankee, born and bred in New Hampshire, and a multitasker. I received a BS degree from UNH, and over the years, while working full-time, I got a real estate license, took real estate appraisal classes, architectural design and drafting and CAD design, and woodworking, cabinet making, and sign carving. If it involved wood, I was there. Is anybody paying attention here? My professional career started as a typeface designer and editor in the type division of CompuGraphic Corporation, then moved to applications engineering at Centronics Corporation, then over to AgFa Corporation, where they hired me as production supervisor for the new Mac design department, where I oversaw creation of scalable fonts for the early Apple Macintosh computer screens and printers. Remember the 1970s and those huge mainframes? And then the 80s when they had those, I remember first seeing those small Apple Macintoshes. Heck, I was even working on a master's in computer science and took my finals 2 weeks before Christmas at 9 months pregnant and gave birth on Christmas Day. Now that was multitasking. Volunteering's in my blood. 2 kids later, settled in Londonderry. There I am volunteering as a Brownie and Girl Scout leader of Troop 16 at Matthew Thornton School, and also as PTA programs coordinated there for 6 or 7 years, bringing outside educators into the classrooms to enrich their curriculums. I also painted Paws, a school tiger mascot, around inside Matthew Thornton School, and even left a little something hidden up in the gym rafters in 1999 during Matthew Thornton's 50th anniversary celebration as a former central school. I volunteered with Destination Imagination, designed the logo for the Rays swim team before the Londonderry High School swim team was formed, and became a fall mom with the Londonderry High School Lancer Marching Band and Color Guard for 6 years. I also worked 10 years for a prominent Manchester real estate attorney that represented New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. I have patience. Fast forward to 2013, with my 2 kids off to college, I applied for the planning board seat after spending some time on the Heritage Commission. Needless to say, I wasn't selected to fill the open position, but former Fire Chief Al Sypek was. And I immediately congratulated him as I recognized that he had a vast amount of experience in dealing with various town issues and had been on the planning board before. I admit it. Al was a very good choice you made. A year later, in September of 2014, I applied again, and yes, was appointed as an alternate member, finally. And I learned that it's a different animal sitting on the other side of the table. And being an alternate gives you time to familiarize yourself with the many land use regulations you should learn and use, and everything else that's involved in being a good planning board member. You especially need to be able to set aside any agendas and personal feelings. And remember, each time an applicant comes before the board, that your job is to listen, to remain impartial, and you must use sound judgment to make decisions based on facts. Speak up, question applicants and staff, and do the background research in making your decisions, because it's all part of your job in helping to guide the development and growth of our town for the benefit of the entire town. I have 6 years of patience now. With 6 years plus under my belt, I'm the longest-serving alternate board member.
Okay, Ann?
Planning Board Chair Art Rugg has always been able to count on me to fill in as a full member when one's absent or recused, or to make a quorum when needed. And in the last 6 years, I've only missed a couple of meetings, even with my stage 4 cancer diagnosis last summer. I won't go into what happened in January of last year during my appointments. However, I do want to say to you, Councilor Farrell, and all the board members, I thank you very much and appreciate your recognition of my efforts on the planning board, on the Londonderry Historical Society, when you awarded me the Volunteer of the Year Award at the 2019 Town Deliberative Session. Now, why am I here?
And just 1 second, let the record reflect that I've lifted the 5-minute limit. Please
Okay.
proceed.
Do you mind if I continue?
I lifted the limit.
Okay.
Just
Earlier
wanted to
this-
make sure it gets in the minutes.
Pardon?
Wanted to make sure it went in the minutes. That I
Okay,
lifted it.
okay, sure.
So please proceed.
Earlier this year, Mary Wing Soares announced that she was stepping down from her full member seat on the planning board. It was on March 13th that I gave my application to you, the town council, to fill out her term as a full member, which expires this December 31st. And then on May 5th of this year, the planning board unanimously voted to recommend to you, the town council, that I be appointed to fill the remainder of Mary Wing Soares' terms. If I remember correctly, Mary was a member of the planning board for 14 years, but you can correct me if I'm wrong about that, and was a wonderful role model. Mary was the last female full member of the board left after the departure of Letha Riley. Now there is none. Her seat has been empty for almost 7 months. I hope you will consider and honor the planning board's vote and appoint me to fill Mary's seat. Mary has left some big shoes to fill, and I'd like to be the one who follows in her footsteps. I'd appreciate your support and a yes vote on my appointment to her position. Thank you very much. And I was just wondering if anybody had any questions or comments.
No, why don't I make this easy for you? I'll accept the motion to have you fill Mary's seat. Someone want to make that motion?
Are we gonna
We'll do the other ones later.
do the other ones later?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
accept the motion to have Ann fill Mary's seat.
All right.
Tom made the motion, can I have a second?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 See the clerk, Mary. Excuse me, see the clerk. Ann.
Ann.
I hope,
Clerk Ann.
I hope I see Mary sometime soon, but I want to thank you all.
Was that easy?
I think I'll stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't mind, though.
Oh, that's up to you.
Okay, thanks. Wish I could clip my heels.
So that's done.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close public comment. We have no public hearings, we have no new business. Excuse me, new business. We do have new business. We have a discussion about ordinance 2020-04, emerging ordinance regarding the face coverings and masks. If you recall from our last meeting, our emergency management director has asked us to draw up something that we can implement at a later date if we have to be in that position, or if the community is in that position that we have to move in that direction. Ms. Drabick is under the weather this evening, so I'm going to turn to the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to read some notes that Lisa provided me with, as she was just going to briefly introduce us tonight. This ordinance was drafted with Attorney Ramsdale's input. It's a fairly generic mask ordinance, which incorporates the provisions used in other towns' mask ordinances around the state. The major difference is that this one contains a trigger provision where, per the council's direction from the last meeting, upon notification of the EMD or other public health official of there being increased community spread, the council will vote whether or not to invoke the ordinance. So in other words, if the ordinance is adopted, it stays on the books unless and until we need it. And then at that point, it's just a tool in the toolbox, if you will, for both the EMD and the council chair, as was discussed.
So what I have here is that it's, will be duly posted at least 7 days prior, so that we can have proper notice and proper public hearing. I see the fines are rather light from our usual ordinances at $50 and $100. I believe the intent from the last meeting was to not necessarily be able to cover every single solitary instance, whether someone should be wearing a mask or has a medical issue or anything like that was to be able to put something on the books so that in the event that we have a problem going into flu season and into the winter, and our emergency management director comes to us and says that, we have an extreme outbreak, that we can move more swiftly than taking the process in which Councilor Dolan, stated earlier, in which it would take us anywhere between, 2 to 4 weeks to enact an ordinance. What I'd like to do this evening is entertain any comments from the council, add those comments to this ordinance, and then I'll be looking for a motion to table. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to see that this is is written in such a way that it forces the council to pull the trigger. I wouldn't, sometime in the future, wouldn't want a future counselor saying, well, when questioned about it, well, it wasn't me, it was the public health officer that did it, or it was the fire chief that did it. I want to make sure that the accountability rests with the council, that if this is to be done, it's to be done by the council. That's a good thing. I have a criticism, though, of the way it's written, and that this really only covers COVID-19. So when COVID-19 goes away, either through herd immunity or through vaccinations or whatever, then this kind of falls by the wayside. It really doesn't apply to anything. Right, the way it's written, you only can invoke masks due to some perturbation of COVID-19. What I might suggest is that you genericize, if that's a real word, the ordinance, so that maybe in the history, to provide some history of where this came from, reference COVID-19, but to give the town the opportunity that if it's a non-COVID reason to invoke masks, maybe it's a new version of H1N1, maybe it's some other epidemic that we're not thinking of right now. You'd have this on the books to be able to utilize in those cases, and the history of the document could refer back to the pandemic, which hopefully won't have another one for another 100 years, but the history is with the pandemic. But I'm thinking that if the only reason you could invoke a mask requirement is because of some increased issue with COVID-19, I think that's too limiting.
I'm told you're going to have a legal challenge if you try to tie this to make it more generic and not have it tied to something specific.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that's Mike's input,
It is.
so I would trust his judgment on that. So, but that was my thought, that to give our emergency management officer, in this case our fire chief, and the council a little more freedom to be able to implement it for something other than COVID. So if that's not possible, then, or if that just presents legal problems, then I guess I would withdraw that criticism.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd like
Yes.
to, okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I was wondering if I could get examples of what some of these triggers may be that would incite to put this ordinance in place. Like, you must have an idea of, what things would have to happen in order for the council to have to come together and put this in place. And I do agree with Tom. I find that it being so, what if by December they're not, and it mutates and merges with the flu and it becomes, COVID-22. So then you can't use this ordinance unless you rechange it, correct? This goes back to the,
Well, as
my
part-
original.
Well, as part of the public hearing process, you can change it. So if we table it and we don't have a public hearing, you can change the ordinance inside the public
Okay,
hearing.
okay. So I'd still like to
That-
know
that
what
would
some of
give
the
you your
triggers
out.
would be. If you don't mind.
Just so everyone's aware.
All right, thank you, John.
That's the reason for tabling it.
Thank you.
So what I'll do, Deb, is what I base my decisions on is obviously, like I said, I get the number of reported cases in town each day. And those cases are cumulative and they last for a period between 14 and 21 days, and you'll see those addresses fall off. We've been staying pretty steady now over the last probably month and a half. We currently have six addresses in town, with a couple of school children as well, or school occupants. So basically, what my triggers will be, obviously, is seeing a massive number increase over what we currently have right now. And
You said
again,
massive?
basing that on the population of the town, and in circumstances such as, and then obviously future guidance from either the governor of the state or the federal government, if they find that there's something that, is triggering something, and this is the best way to go about doing this. It's just it's a tool in our toolbox to be able to pull this out and say, this is what we need to do at this particular time. Like I try and tell everybody, I don't have a PhD in microbiology. I'm not a doctor. I'm going on the recommendations of both the CDC, the state, and the federal government on what they're recommending going forward. And contrary to what this gentleman was saying, everything that I've read, masks are doing something. And they're predicting that the masks are going to make the difference. Whether that's the case or not, I'm not to judge. I'm just going by the recommendations that these individuals are given.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the chief. I just have an additional comment. Do you,
I just was gonna put parameters around, you said a massive increase, like you're talking 20 to 30 people, 40 to 50, 10 to 20. I just kind of want to have it in my head so that,
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I will bring to the council, and I mean, this will be a decision, I don't want to basically make it just a sole decision on myself. It's a
Okay.
decision that I will keep you folks informed. If I see an influx in cases that are going up, and I see it's higher than even at the peak of what we had going into March and April, I will definitely bring it to your attention. I mean, if we stay steady throughout this thing, I think, like I said, Londonderry has done a great job in this thus far. I think we've done phenomenal. And, when it comes down to if we're going to get into a rough season again, I will go back to the public addresses. I will keep the community informed on everything that's going forward. Recommendations that that I'm hearing or would make, and we'll go at that way. But it's not going to be a decision that's solely based on if I say, oh, all of a sudden we have 75 cases, everybody's got to wear a mask. It's going to be a decision of all of us to make.
okay.
So Chief, if I was to give you an example, for instance, something that happened today, 20 staff members at Pinkerton were diagnosed with COVID-19 today. The school went virtual. So if 1,000 cases came out of there, you'd probably be coming to see us.
Absolutely, I would.
Okay. Oh, I got Tom first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my interest to maintain my reputation as being a nitpicker on these town documents, on page 1 of the ordinance, the first reading should be 10-6 versus 10-8. 10-5?
10-5.
10-5. Right, 10-5 today. That's it.
Joe?
Yeah, so I think the trigger thing is something that I was going to bring up as well, so I don't want to be stuck on it, but I think we should be a little more clear about the trigger. Having it just open to 5 or 5,000, I think is tough, so maybe we can think a little bit more about that in that tabling process. I think you said we can do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is outside. I'm not really sure that it makes much sense to have outside here, but the attorney did say that he looked at that. We all listened to, and I think that it's also been talked about where outside masks is a lot less needed, or probably proven to be not as much of a help, especially when you're out in the fresh air. So, I would suggest maybe taking a really close look at that as well. But other than that, I think this is very much like Massachusetts. I work in sites in Massachusetts, and this isn't really anything more than what they're doing right now. So, in the case of, as you just said, Mr. Chairman, there's an outbreak of 1,000 people, 2,000 people in Londonderry. When we take this out of our tool chest and make this one of many, many other pieces that we would use to make sure that the town is safe, I think it could be a tool. But certainly, this can't be the only piece, arsenal in our toolbox.
Anyone else? Yes, anything?
Deb, and I think it's because of the nature of what we're dealing with, I think to try to outline triggers, I don't think we can do it. I really don't think we can do it. And I think the caveat to this is that it's not just gonna be the chief's decision, it's gonna be a board decision. And that's, to me, that is appropriate. I mean, this COVID's changing daily. You have one faction that sits here and says face masks are good. You have another faction that sits here and says face masks are bad. So I think it's great that it's a decision that comes to the board. Triggers, I think we just gotta take it one step at a time and hear it out.
There's gotta be reasons, the triggers are just the reasons that he would come to us. So like, what would incite him to come here? And he just told me that it would be something new came in from CDC. The government put in the governor, put in a new ordinance or a ruling, and that we had an increasing, a large amount of numbers. You know, you said, like, it would be maybe good for me to say over 100 people, right? That would
Yeah, I mean, at our highest,
come to the council.
right, at our highest point during March and April, I think we were probably in the high 40s, low 50s, you know, at the peak during that time. And
No,
since
but I'm
then,
just saying, so it's
Right.
not like, I guess what I was trying to put out there is it's not gonna be just like, oh my God, I heard this might happen, I'm gonna come in here and do this. I wanted to kind of put light on the fact that there's gonna be some sort of an actual a reasoning process that you're gonna go through.
I assure you there will
It
be,
would have to be an emergency.
Right.
And I think,
Yes, John.
I think I made my
You know how
opinion very
people-
clear last time I was here, that I was only interested in this ordinance and not really interested in it at all, unless it was more a part of a toolbox to handle an outbreak. So this does not satisfy me at all, as far as, without triggers, I apologize, I disagree, without an outbreak trigger. And so that's what I'm looking for. I don't want people to be in the town having to wear masks because we go from 40 to 45. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I'm looking for, one counselor, I'm looking for an outbreak, an emergency. This is when we're able to do this. So this doesn't satisfy me the way it's written right now.
Joe, the only thing I would just comment on that is I think you're going to find is if you try to start defining it, it's going to get very difficult because we could have an outbreak, but it could be limited to the All-American Assisted Living, in which case you may not want to trigger the ordinance at that point if it's secluded to one area, even though it's considered a quote-unquote outbreak. So I think by playing devil's advocate, by not defining it and giving yourself more broad leeway, and having that discussion amongst the council when the EMD comes in, you may find you're less handcuffed that way.
But I'm saying the trigger, for him to say, this is now being triggered so that we can then bring it to the council, that's what I'm saying. We can still say, no, you have 300 people in town, sorry, we're not gonna enforce it, we're not
I
gonna put it in."
assure you, I won't trigger it on myself. I mean, when
No,
it,
but you know what I mean? It's-
when it comes down to the information, I'll be sure to keep, I've been trying to keep open communication with all of you, especially the town chair. And I will continue to do that as we move forward, but, yeah, this won't be a decision solely based on,
This has nothing to do with the decision you're making. I'm saying to you, I just thought that it'd be nice to have you have some guidance with, as far as the trigger to say, this is what we're looking, before it even comes to us, right? Oh, and I'm not saying you do this, but who knows? I mean, 10 years from now, this is still in here, whatever, like you said, it's COVID 2025, and we look at this and somebody says, well, it's been going from 40 to 45, and then it gets triggered. I guess the council, either way, could say no, but I'm just saying, in order for us not to waste any time, you know, kind of have a clarity on things. I mean, I'm in operations. I'm an operations department. I'm not in a marketing department. So I'm I work with clarity. I work with having guidelines. I work with having triggers. That's what I do all day for work. So I apologize for trying to influence that a little bit more, but I just think I trust your ability to make decisions, of course I do, but I thought it'd be easier if we were able to give you some guidance. This doesn't really give you guidance on it, is what I'm saying to you.
Okay, I think the thing we need to remember is that we're gonna table this, is it's not going to be an ordinance. We don't have enough information to know what guidance is. We don't know what that information is. When you have a public hearing and he brings that information to us, then you'll have the information you need to put in the ordinance that these are the triggers we are setting, and then you enact the ordinance. Right now, we don't know the answer to that. So these other places that have put this in place have done it without it. I'm not looking for that. I'm only looking to save 7 days. So that, God forbid, we have an emergency, we can move more rapidly. That's the entire purpose here.
I'm not trying to make it more difficult, Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to say that we do have numbers. He just gave us 50. We make it, 10% of it, 20%, 50% of it, I don't know. Something that's gonna cause it to be an outbreak. I can look up the definition of an outbreak, I guess, and find out, but I'm just trying to say that I think it was, the people that I've talked to in the town, they would like us to be very careful about making this type of ordinance. And I promised them that I'd be very careful in making this type of ordinance, because it does, push people in a direction that they don't wanna be pushed, but I also know that there's health, we're unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you wanna say, we are, positioned for that. That's what our job is to do. So we gotta make some tough decisions, I realize that, but I can't just ignore the constituents that are
No,
coming
I
up to me
don't disagree with you at
concerns.
all.
So, I have to represent their,
Again, no ordinance
well.
is going in place.
So
I realize
John,
that.
can you clarify for me just a little bit, on tabling, so so just say we agree that this is a good thing, right? And we table it. So then the fire chief comes in and says, we got 1,000 cases, this is all hypothetical, and we need to pull it up. So it's already created, we pull this up, and then we tweak it to like fit what's going on at that situation at that point in time?
Yeah, the
I just
problem-
wanna understand it
I understand.
completely.
The problem we have right now is we don't have enough information to implement an ordinance, in my opinion. What the emergency management director has asked is please take the necessary steps to be in a position so that if we have an emergency, we can move more rapidly. When tabling an item, we can take, I'm going to ask for a motion to table it indefinitely,
Okay.
so that if Darren comes back to us as the fire chief and says, John, there's 500 people, there's 50% of the staff in the schools has tested positive, we need to act. Then we're gonna step back and we're gonna say, we got 7 days to figure this out, and say, what are we gonna do? We may get to the end of the 7 days and not tweak the ordinance and not do anything. But it won't take us 14 days.
Okay,
So we're buying ourselves 7 days.
okay.
And that's really all this is doing, is giving something so we can move more rapidly. Now, we will probably immediately start to educate. I don't think we have an issue in this community. Almost every store you go to requires a mask. Almost every restaurant you go into requires a mask. You see people wearing masks out of kindness. I don't think we have an issue.
I would agree.
The only thing this is for is if we have an emergency. That's it. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing that anybody says on social media that we're putting an ordinance in place. None of that.
So basically, to me, it's like having an extra battery in your bag in case your flashlight dies, you get an extra battery. That's what this is. So we're saving on time, having to run to the store to get the battery.
Sounds great.
Correct.
Got it. All right, thank you.
So, what's the other side of it then, if we can explain the fact that if we table it, it goes away, but if we had a hearing and we talked about it more, we can probably sharpen it up to get something that we can then still table and still have it a better ordinance to begin with,
Mr. Chairman,
right?
point of order?
Yes.
You can always, you don't have to have procedurally, you don't have to have a first reading and a public hearing. You can have a second reading, a third reading, many as you want, to continue to fine tune or to update it. I think what John's trying to do is shorten that period of time to the public hearing. Basically takes a week out of it. But if, for example, in your opinion, you want to have a second reading and still table it after that point, because you want a second reading to add a sentence, remove a sentence, or change a few words or whatever. I think that's legal.
So as an example, if we table it tonight and you want to bring it back on the agenda, bring it back on the agenda. I want this added in. And then we'll table it again.
I just think we can do more work to it, that's all I was trying to put out. I don't see the things that I had asked for the last couple of weeks ago, that's all, so, but I can,
So what I would suggest is that we're in uncharted waters, uncharted legal
Yep.
waters. Why don't you send those to the town manager? He can send them to the town attorney, and we'll see if they pass muster with the legal people.
okay.
You know, if Lisa was here tonight, I would get into the legal stuff, but she's not. Are you good, Chief?
I'm good.
You're all set? Everybody else?
Yep.
Good? All right, I know the Patriots game is on, so I'm trying to be somewhat efficient. All right, so I'm gonna accept a motion to table this indefinitely.
So moves, Chairman?
Second?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Votes affirmative, this ordinance is tabled. Okay, before I move on to the next thing is, has everyone gotten a copy of the fiscal year 2022 budget calendar?
Yeah.
Have it, take a look at it. Recognize that November 7th is a Saturday. We're generally out of here no later than 1 o'clock. It says we're starting at 9, which is actually, usually we start at 8, but we'll try starting at 9.
Well, so just to clarify, we were told we had to start at 9 because we're going to have to hold it in the cafeteria. And there's SATs going on that day, and so they asked to avoid us all coming at the same time to start it an hour later at 9 o'clock.
All right, so we'll try to get everybody wrapped up by 1. You know, just, but take a look at the calendar, see if there's dates that are in conflict for you, and let me know. Okay, next item is approval of the September 28th Town Council minutes. And I know that Ms. Champa has spoken to Kirby about a change in the minutes, rent versus buy, and something that she had discussed. So I'll accept a motion with Ms. Champa's amendment and as presented in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. We move on. Appointments to the planning
I
board.
wasn't here, so.
Okay, so we've been going back and forth on this planning board thing, I think, long enough. So, can I have a motion can someone make a motion for appointments? So what I've got is I've got 1 full-time position open. With Ann going forward, that gives me 1 or 2 alternates then?
One. Just one.
Just 1
Just
alternate.
one alternate.
So I need a motion we have the motion for Ann going forward. I need another full-time person, and I need an alternate, so if I can have a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Jeff Penter to the full-time position to finish out Scott's, and that for the alternate position, Jason Knight, because Ann has moved up.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
Motion carries. Okay, next item.
Would we have discussed that?
Okay,
I
I'm
just don't
happy,
have-
I'm happy to discuss, but the vote's been taken.
No, I know, I didn't know when to say that. I thought it was gonna happen automatically.
Point of
but-
order?
Go ahead.
The discussion, just
Well, he-
for motions like this, or any motion, after the motion's been made and seconded, that's the point for discussion. You often hear someone say, "I'll second it for discussion." But that is where discussion takes place, after the second, before the vote.
Okay, I just thought that we would discuss it, so.
Generally, someone needs to bring it to my attention. I'll stop everything if anybody wants to discuss anything.
Okay, so I just
So
gotta be
just
quicker
go-
and louder.
Yeah, just get my attention.
Quicker and louder, gotcha.
Just get my attention. Okay, I think I've got some interviews here, this evening. Irene? Irene, I don't want to butcher your last name. Macarelli. Hey, that wasn't bad. Come on up, Irene. So we filled the planning board position. I see you're also interested in the heritage position. Please have a seat. If you're more comfortable taking your mask off, please feel free. And I'm just gonna need your name and address for our records.
Sure, my name is Irene Macarelli, and I live at 99 High Range Road.
Hi, Irene. So generally what we do is when we're interviewing folks, I give them the opportunity to be able to introduce themselves and tell us why they would believe they would be interested in the position. Would you be comfortable doing that, or I can move to the counselors for questions, whatever you're more comfortable with?
Sure, no, that's fine. While I did Leadership Londonderry last year, so I knew I wanted to volunteer in some capacity.
Fantastic.
And I work for the building department at City Hall in Malden, Massachusetts. So, and I do like the sign design clerk, I'm the vacant property coordinator. And then we do a lot with just inspectional services. So I felt like it just aligns with what I do, and I really wanted to get involved in the community here in Londonderry.
Terrific. Do we have any open positions on the Heritage Commission right now? We do?
Yeah, one.
We do. Do we have any other candidates that we're considering?
One, we're just waiting to hear whether we want to interview them now or wait till the end of the year. All the, things up at the end of the year anyway.
But there's an open position now.
Yes.
Okay. Questions for Irene, anyone?
Is there an alternate or full-time?
Mr. Chairman, we have, with my understanding, if Brendan O'Brien moves up, do we need to vote on that first, to move up to a full-time position, to open up his position for one of these?
One.
Well, Brendan O'Brien is ZBA, right?
Yeah, correct.
My understanding
I thought
is-
that's what we were interviewing for.
We're talking about,
Zoning.
Irene's looking at Heritage Commission.
Oh, I thought we were doing
I thought we were
ZBA.
talking to ZBA.
Yeah, ZBA.
No,
I did
She didn't
ha-
check, she didn't check off ZBA unless you're interested in the ZBA.
Yes, I did check that, and then I
Yeah.
put
Second
Heritage
page.
as
Did she?
the second
Yep.
one.
That's my
Actually,
mistake.
ZBA
No.
was their first choice, John.
Yeah.
That's my mistake. I apologize.
No worries.
So continuing with my thought,
Yeah.
if, I think, may I suggest that we take a vote on Brendan O'Brien? If we move him up to the full-time position from an alternate, then that opens up the ability to either point Irene or David Armstrong into that alternate position on the
Oh, I'll
ZBA.
entertain a motion for that.
Hold on, just, I want to check.
So moved, I make a motion to move to appoint Brendan O'Brien as a full-time member of the ZBA.
Second?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien, please see the clerk and be sworn in. Okay, so that leaves it up. Hey, thank you. Take care.
So now, so continuing on that, we have now one, Kirby, we have one alternate position to fill on the ZBA?
Correct.
Two,
And we have two applicants, got it.
Mr. Chairman, are we still questioning?
Yes, please.
Okay. Irene, thank you for stepping up. Have you been to any of the zoning board meetings yet?
I have not in Londonderry, no.
Okay. If you haven't seen it already, are you familiar with the process at all?
Yes, I
It was
am.
by, certain laws and regulations, and how do you feel about, trick question here, how do you feel about when you're, when you have an opinion, a personal opinion about something, it should go the same way, but you're kind of stuck with those 5 points of law that you have to grapple with? How would you deal with that?
I would think that's fair to actually do it that way. Yeah, I think it's important to be impartial, not to, my opinion wouldn't really be what should be, I guess, what I should be concerned with. I'm very good at putting things like that aside and being fair, I think, and impartial.
Yeah, because when I was on the ZBA, there was some things that you feel like you wish that you could, had the authority to change, but, there is a very strict guideline that you have to follow, so, as much as you bring a lot of your, as the things that you said, in your own business life, you could bring a lot of those things forward, but if they don't specifically, fit within those criteria, it's sometimes, well, you can't say yes, so, just was wondering if you ever saw the process, because it is something that's, a little different than, at least, when I signed up, it was a little different than what I thought it was gonna be, so.
I've seen it in Malden, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's maybe very
Not to
different.
disenchant you, it's a lot of fun still, but I mean, it was just something different, so I would suggest that you take a look at it,
Yes.
also when you can.
Anyone else?
Me?
Yes, Tom?
Thank you, Irene, for coming forward. The ZBA is probably the closest thing we have to being a quasi-judicial board. When you make a decision on the ZBA, the appeal for the applicant, if they don't like the decision, it's not this board, not this council. It has to go to court. So it's very important that understanding the gravity of the decisions the ZBA makes and the legal standing that they have, and the fact that we cannot and should not try to influence you as a member of the ZBA or anyone on the ZBA. But it's also very important that members of the ZB understand and recognize the issues of potential conflicts of interest and the serious nature of their decisions to not only to the applicant, but to the town that's hosting the property that's under question. So that's kind of a point of information. Wanted to make sure you understood that well. And the big question is, do you think you have anything in your background or past or in your family that would create potential conflicts of interest as you make these decisions on the
No, I
ZBA?
don't.
Okay, good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else for Irene?
Yeah, Irene, you had mentioned that you've had some experience or you've watched the ZBA board down in Massachusetts
Yes.
on a frequent basis, or, I mean, how much?
Yes, quite a few. And then also part of my job is when someone is applying, when they're appealing to the board.
To the ZBA?
Yes.
Okay.
Myself and my counterpart are the ones that help them through that process.
Okay. Because this is probably one of the most difficult boards to sit on. It's the ZBA, it's not fun. The question, Chairman, can we vote on this now? Or do we have to
We have one
wait?
other applicant
We
for
have one more
ZBA.
applicant? Okay. All right.
Just a quick comment. So you drive all the way to Malden every day, huh?
Yeah.
I do.
I graduated high school with Gary Christensen, the mayor.
Oh, really?
We went to Suffolk University together. He became an attorney, as you know. But, yeah, a lot of history there, so.
Well, now we know what's wrong with Joe.
Exactly. She knows specifically if she hangs around Gary all the time.
See, we gotta get this guy Gary up here to give us some stories.
He's a good guy. He's done a lot from Malden, so it's
Yeah,
been great.
he really
Proud
has.
to see him in there.
Well, thank you, Irene, and we'll get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you staying around and watching us make the sausage.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Armstrong. Hi, Dave, how are you?
Pretty good, how you doing?
All
My
right,
name is,
so just name and address.
yep, David Armstrong, I live at 30 Sherwood Road in Londonderry.
So, you heard what I said to the nice lady before you, is if you would like to make an opening statement, you're welcome to do that, or we can go through, start asking questions. It's your call.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been in this town, lived here in Londonderry for 18 years. Moved up here because of the city that I grew up in and that I was, that I lived in before I came here. There was some changes and not so good things going on, so we moved the family up here. And now that my kids have gone to school and have grown up, got a lot more free time, so I figured I'd volunteer for something on the town. And I picked the zoning board because one of the things is, the town that I grew up in, I went to a few of the meetings. Some of them were part interest me, some of them weren't, but a lot of times it wasn't, they didn't make the decisions on hardship or town, it was more favors, and not that any of that goes on here, but.
Just
so
with
I figured-
friends of Joe.
What's that?
Just kidding.
So, yeah.
Sausage making.
So, I figured that was more something I'm more passionate about, so that's why I decided to, volunteer for the zoning board. I'm an operations manager for 3 data centers in Waltham, so I drive to Waltham every day. Not Malden, but I drive down to Waltham. And then, so that's, the 3 data centers, so I run technicians and the day-to-day operations of the buildings. But I'm also a licensed plumber. I've been a licensed plumber for, I don't know, probably 35 years. And a licensed pipe fitter, so I have like a facilities background also, so. I think that's about all I got really to say.
Thank you. Questions?
Would you consider another committee besides the 2 that you've checked off?
No, they're not really the 2 that interest me, to be honest with you, so I mean, if I'm gonna do something, then I have to really be passionate about it, or else it's not worth doing.
Okay.
Because I'd ask the same question. You said you've seen a few zoning boards in your own town. Have you actually attended one here?
I haven't attended any in Londonderry, no. I mean, I know how the process works. I don't know what else to say, but no, I haven't. I really haven't been much involved in the town. I did go through the Londonderry Legionship also, just to get more involved in the town. And that's why I figured I'd volunteer for this position.
Thank you for stepping up. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for volunteering, and you heard my comments earlier about,
Yep.
do you have anything in your background or extended into your family that would cause some nervousness about conflicts of interest?
No, I believe in fairness, so wouldn't, I mean, basically, you know, I listen to the hardship, but obviously, the town would be more on my list of, you know, favorability, if there was any favorability, but obviously, there's reasons why people, you know, they go for variance and stuff, so, obviously, you gotta keep that into consideration.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for volunteering, and we're gonna try to figure things out here.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a comment, we've seen in the last few weeks here, a number of the volunteers who have come in have gone through the Leadership Londonderry classes, and it's a great thing to see, because that's what we're hoping for, is that they'll take what they learn from those classes and then step up to volunteer. So it's a great thing to see.
Okay. All right, so as I always ask before we get into these things, do you want to continue with appointments tonight, or do you want to wait till the next meeting? I'm asking that question because the last time I asked that, it wound up getting moved anyway, so I'm gonna ask it now.
Well, we don't need to wait for someone else to show up to.
No, then I'll call for motions. Anyone who wants to make a motion for appointment.
So,
So I need a name.
well, no, this is a discussion that I wanted to throw out to you.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so we have a position on Heritage open, correct?
Yes.
All right, and Irene was the only one so far who's checked that off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then we have this position at ZBA, and then both of them have checked that one off, correct?
Correct.
All right, and as far as planning board that's all set? And- Okay.
That's
And
full at
then,
this point.
is there still a conservation position open? Because somebody gave a letter of resignation, that was like 2 weeks ago or something, at a council meeting?
Clarify.
Yeah, so conservation, again, we're waiting to hear back from ARC, but I'm pretty sure they're waiting until the end of the year because it's so close to the end of December. They don't wanna have to appoint somebody because the term was up at the end of this year.
Okay,
Appoint somebody to only sit in on 1 or 2 meetings.
okay,
So they're gonna wait for that, and there is another applicant for Heritage, so I would advise to kind of wait, if you're gonna appoint anyone to Heritage, because there is somebody else who would like to interview for that.
Okay, so it's your guys' call. repeat what I said earlier. Do you want to wait till the next meeting until we do appointments?
I would like to wait. I'd like to make a motion to wait to hear the other person, to be fair.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we appoint to the ZBA and wait on the Heritage appointment.
Whatever the board wants to do. I'm just the one keeping count.
Did you make a motion?
I did, but
I'll
then
second the
Tom,
motion.
Well, it wasn't a motion
Oh,
to
wasn't a
take
motion.
any action. I think what she
it's a
was.
table, it's just to have, to be fair.
Are you making a motion to table?
Yeah, to be fair to that other applicant, but.
Motion on the
that's-
floor.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
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 We're tabling.
No. I want to register my vote to no, not to table, but
I understand.
I have to go with the majority.
I understand. Well, that's,
Yeah.
like I said, I just
I
keep
had to
score
go
up
through
here.
that.
What's been tabled, all of them?
We'll just table any additional
Heritage.
appointments until the next meeting. So folks, what that means is that we're gonna let the other people interview and then we'll appoint at the next meeting. So thank you for coming down tonight and watching the process. Very much appreciate it.
I was,
I'm sorry, those are complete, I believe.
yeah, can we just review that, because I'm looking at the sheet here, and maybe Kirby can help us with this, because I think there's another alternate position, so.
No, because you did move Roger up, you filled the full position.
But we moved Ann up, right?
Right.
Yep, and.
Correct.
Right.
And
Yeah, we did that during public
She
comment.
was the other alternate that was filled.
Well, no,
Oh,
there's.
we still
there's-
have an
there's another
alternate
one. There's
then.
another one here. There's three of them.
We still have one more
No,
alternate.
we did Lynn Wiles.
You did Lynn
He's a-
last meeting.
and we
Okay,
did
but then there's
Jason
still
Knight.
another one.
He's an
Oh, we
alternate.
did do
Yeah,
Jason?
yeah, I
When?
recommended Ann, Jeff, and Jason.
Oh,
And
okay.
Roger
Well-
stays where he is,
Been filled. Stairs up more.
correct?
Oh, thank you
Am I
for
wrong?
clarifying.
Resign and get.
I only
sworn
heard
in,
Jeff, that's why.
Become a full member?
You just go see the clerk and sign up as a full
You don't
member.
need to resign.
No need to resign. You just go see the clerk, get sworn back in as a full member.
Okay.
Okay?
I didn't hear you, Jim, when you had said that third name, that's why. Sorry about that.
No problem.
No worries.
Only if
Okay.
Roger moves up, we would have that other alternate. Okay,
Right.
gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. We good? All right, that's motion to table, and completed. Liaison reports, anything new to report from the last meeting only a week ago?
Yes, we just had a Traffic Safety Commission meeting, and most of the topic was concerning the speed in town, and also Litchfield Road. And the committee voted to reduce temporarily the mileage on Litchfield Road to 30 miles an hour, and to put up 2 radar solar units along Litchfield Road, which would be decided between the police department and John Trottier. The town manager did mention that due to budget constrictions, that, we're gonna have to look at the radar signs.
I don't know that I'm not sure that the Traffic Safety Commission has the authority to even lower a speed limit temporarily. I believe that has to come to the council.
Does it have to come to council? I apologize.
Mr. Chairman?
No worries.
So we'll come to the council.
Yes, sir.
I seem to remember somewhere in my brain cells from many, many years ago that the town cannot, unless it's a school district, the town cannot reduce speed limits below 35 and make them enforceable. I mean, you can put 10 miles an hour, but it's not enforceable. The Londonderry police can't write tickets on
We'll have to go
anything.
back and look at the history on High Range Road, because the council lowered High Range Road to 30.
Right, and we had a problem with, that was the teaching point, is that we couldn't enforce below 35, because it's a state requirement that.
Well, somebody would have told the town of Hudson, since they lowered the whole town to 30.
You could, like you said, you can put in whatever signs you want up, but if you go to court with a ticket, the court's not gonna allow it to be enforced. That's my memory, so maybe we need to ask.
Check with our prosecutor.
Yeah.
And find out if that's the case.
I'll talk to Bob.
I don't wanna be spending overtime money for police officers to sit in courtrooms that can't be enforced.
Can you speak with Mr. Malaguti and find out if that is the case?
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, that's gonna have to come to the council to be lowered temporarily, and we'll find out from our prosecutor whether or not that is
And-
enforceable or not.
If I may follow on that,
Sure.
what Councilor Bartlett mentioned is important in terms of those speed boxes. Because they tell you when you're speeding, but that's not the primary purpose of those boxes. What they are is data collectors. And every time a car goes past them, it collects the data as to how fast that car is going. And after 1,000 cars go by, it's pretty easy to determine what the average speed is and what the highest is and the lowest is. So rather than just someone saying, if people are driving too fast down my road, the box will tell you is exactly how fast they're going and on average how fast they're going. So if someone just is cranky, then you'll find out what the real data is. If someone is accurate, then we can start patrolling more. So I would not shy away from putting those boxes up there, but again, lowering the speed limit without having good legal advice first, I think is important.
I would hope if people see the box going crazy at them, they would slow down. but
Does
that's
that, no, I was just gonna say, does that information go anywhere? Because there's a couple that are around that I think the bulbs are gonna start to blow out of them because they just go off constantly.
Our police chief gets that data.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And one of the things that we discussed is there are a few studies that psychologically the radar signs
Yeah.
work better and is a deterrent to speeding. Because it's instantaneous information to the person.
Right.
And the person has a tendency to make the correction because it's feedback, and they take their foot off the accelerator. And I can tell you personally, I've been on Stonehenge where it's helped me. You're not paying attention, all of a sudden the sign hits you and you're going, whoop. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
definitely,
That's the best method.
I've definitely hit my brakes, it's just the
Yeah.
problem behind me, I gotta make sure that nobody's gonna hit me from behind.
Okay.
I don't know if the machines we have actually collect that data,
It
but
does.
that would be
I don't
nice
know.
if
It
the
does.
chief could come in and say,
It does.
this is the thing from Mammoth Road
Yeah.
we've been studying, and that would be really
good
helpful.
information.
It is good information, and
it-
it should be shared.
Well, then,
I didn't know that those things could collect that.
ask the town manager to ask the chief to provide some
Oh.
data for us.
Find out if that equipment actually does that, or if it's a
I
different option.
know it does, but
Oh, this equipment
it's
does?
just a matter, you gotta just ask, what does the data say? I'd be shocked if he says, I haven't got any data.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on liaison reports? Seeing none, moving on, town manager report.
Just one item I wanted to bring up. We have awarded all of the reimbursement monies for the COVID-related expenses to our small businesses in town. In total, we awarded over $50,000 to a number of small businesses. We put out a press release with all of the business names and how much money they received. A number of them received up to the maximum of $2,500. And I know it was very well received and very much appreciated by all the businesses that did receive money, and I think was probably very good use of part of the funds that we received as part of the CARES Act.
Great.
Kevin, do we know of any businesses in town that have closed
Because of
gone out of
COVID?
business because of COVID?
I'm not. I know there's a few that have closed. I'm not sure though if they were COVID related or not. That I'm not aware of.
Okay. All right, so latest I've heard is, I had a discussion with Jason Breen today about traffic on, for November 3rd. Keep in mind that November 3rd, we're back at the polls. My understanding is that we either are at or are approaching 4,000 absentee ballots that have been sent out. We had 2,600 go out for the primary and 2,100 come back. So it would not surprise me if we ended up somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 absentee ballots. The moderator and is working with the clerk to find out how we're going to go about processing those and working with the town manager. That is going to be a Herculean task. But do keep in mind, November 3rd, we are on from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Our next meeting is on October 15th, excuse me, on October 19th, which is 2 weeks from now. No more weekly meeting, Joe. And hope to see you here at 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, the person who substituted for me on the primary will also substitute for me on November 3rd.
Okay.
Also, if I may, just finishing up on the topic about businesses that are opening and closing, I would like to ask the town manager if we could infuse the technique that we had been using to welcome new businesses, to invite them when they open, invite them to come and introduce themselves, and as a business-friendly gesture, not as an advertising mechanism, but as a business-friendly gesture. And also, I mean, I know the Bellavance Beverage building is almost done. I think it'd be a good idea for the council to get a tour of that as it nears completion.
Sure.
That's on Pettingill Road.
Just a friendly reminder, this coming Monday, next Monday is Columbus Day, and the town offices are closed that day.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Before you do the adjourn, we will have a one-day delay in trash collection that day, or is that week, or is that not?
Probably. It hasn't been announced yet, but we probably will.
Okay. Motion to
I
adjourn.
would check that. I don't necessarily think that day, Martin Luther King Day, I don't think those are days we delay for. So double check that.
We will definitely have an announcement, one way or the other.
And I did hear we don't have a meeting next Monday, right?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.